This is episode number 39 of the Expert Table Tennis Podcast. My name is Ben Larcombe and my guest on the show today is Samson Dubina. Now, there hasn't been an episode for quite a while now. The last one came out on the 1st of September. I can only apologise for not producing those episodes. It's just been a really busy time for me with loads of different stuff going on. But we're back in 2017. There will be a new episode coming out on the 1st of every month. And I'm also excited to let you know about a new podcast that I'm starting called Ask a Table Tennis Coach. And on that show, I will be answering your table tennis questions 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. And that will just be kind of a short 5-6 minute long podcast. And I hope that that's something that is really valuable and helpful to you. If you'd like to ask me a question for that, you can go to experttabletennis.com/ask. But for now, let's get into this episode of the Expert Table Tennis Podcast with my guest, Samson Dubina. My guest on the show today is Samson Dubina. Hi, Samson.
Hey, Ben. How you doing?
Yeah, doing really well, thank you. How are you?
Yep, having a good week.
Awesome. Now, we actually spoke 18 months ago on the podcast. I think you're the first ever guest to come on for a second go. Back then we were talking about Rio and 2016 and all your training for that. It'd be awesome if we could do a bit of a catch up and kind of find out how your table tennis has been going since then. So I wonder if you'd give us a kind of a brief rundown of everything that's happened for your table tennis over the last 18 months.
Yeah, so it was really a good experience training. I had a lot of good supporters who were backing me and really encouraging me along the way. I think it was good training. I did kind of a mixture of two things. One is I hired some professional players to come here to Ohio and practice with me. And then the other thing is I did go out and train at some training centers in the U.S. and tried to compete in as many tournaments as possible. So I would say overall it was a good experience, not only for my playing, but also for my coaching. You know, over the last 9 years, I've been doing a mixture of playing and coaching. And as I develop my game and make improvements in my game, I think it also makes me a better coach as well. I mean, right now I've got over 20 things in my game that I'm trying to fix. So it might seem overwhelming to have all these problems, but as I work through these problems in my own game, I think it makes me a better coach as well.
Yeah, definitely. And just out of interest, what are a couple of those things so that people can get an understanding of what you mean when you say that you've got these areas that you're trying to work on?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a wide variety of different things with the technique and how I move, with being more relaxed on my stroke, with getting more snap on my wrist on my serve. So there's a wide variety of different things. Some things are a little bit easier to change, and some things are not. So for example, on my forehand loop, I used to take it back a little bit too far, and I used to have more of a closed angle. Now I'm trying to not backswing so much, and I'm trying to follow more of the contour of the ball. So by snapping more on my forehand with my forearm, I'm going to be able to actually follow the curve or the contour of the ball, giving me increased speed and spin. So that's something like that, I would say, is somewhat difficult to change, but it's definitely possible. Maybe something like taking my wrist to a different position on my serve. That's even easier to change. Something like developing a more relaxed technique. This is something that's more difficult to change. So I have some things that are easier, some things that are medium, and some things are extremely difficult to change. But I'm trying to have the right perspective and more think long term and just say, hey, look, how can I develop my game long term?
Sure, definitely. And you've been doing loads of tournaments, and I saw recently you interviewed Kenji Matsudaira. I'm wondering if anything has really stood out for you that separates your game at the moment from where you'd really like it to be, like kind of those real elite high level players that you've been coming into contact with. Is there anything that stands out that separates them from the rest of players?
Well, with playing and coaching, there are some things that you can control, and then there are some things you can't control. So I would probably say the main thing that's holding me from achieving a high level in the world rankings is my basic technique. So when I first started out, I did get some coaching, which I'm really thankful for, and it wasn't nearly enough. I mean, I didn't get professional training until I was 21 years old. So a lot of my bad habits were my game was completely saturated with bad habits. I mean, you've heard the expression that it's easy to form a habit, but it's hard to break a habit. So I think breaking the habits from when I was younger has been one of the biggest challenges. If I had had a professional coach from age 6 and developed the right technique, I think it would have been much, much easier. But like I said, I don't really want to focus on what I can't change. I think I need to focus more on what I can change. Instead of saying, hey, look, I'm stuck here in Ohio. It's a terrible place for table tennis. I think that I have to say, hey, look, what improvements can I make today or this year? And just kind of go with that.
Yeah, definitely. And are you bringing that into your coaching? So I know that you coach a lot of young players and you're coaching your own kids as well. Are you putting a high emphasis on getting the technical stuff right at a young age because of your own experiences?
See, I'm actually trying to multitask. Yeah, I want to make sure that their technique is good, their footwork is good, and we focus a lot on that. But I think that there's a lot of things that are missed just focusing on the basic forehand and the basic backhand within the first 5 or 6 years. So, for example, if they worked on target practice, maybe learning to loop with a little bit more depth, loop shorter, loop deeper, loop wider. They're focusing on target practice. They're focusing on adjusting their positioning, whether it be being able to play slightly closer from the table or slightly further from the table, being able to hit different gears and being able to play at different speeds. I think all of these things are encompassed in the basic technique. I see a lot of coaches and they just want the technique to look perfect, but there's also a lot of other things that are involved in it. Being able to change gears, like I said, being able to not just put a lot of balls on the table, but be able to put the balls on the table with the right quality and the right spin as well. So, yeah, the basic is right, but I think that they can work on other things at the same time while they're working on their basic stroke.
Yeah, sounds great. And it sounds like you're coming at it, you're talking about variety and a real depth of understanding in a stroke instead of just having that one thing that looks great when you're playing with the coach or playing with a robot, but then when you're in the match it maybe doesn't hold up so well.
Yeah, so what I want for all my players is that their mind is actively involved and that they're really thinking through, they're really problem solving, even when they're doing like basic drills. I just hate it when my players do a 15-minute footwork drill and they're kind of brain dead, and the blocker over there on the other side of the table looks like he's half asleep. I like drills that actively involve both players, and I like it when we're not just trying to get to 20 balls every time, but we're trying to actually accomplish something. We're studying the opponent at the right time to know when to change direction, or we understand that we need to give more variation. Anything that you can do to actively stimulate your mind to think during the drills, as opposed to just kind of going through the motions of the drills, is definitely beneficial long term.
Yeah, awesome. Right. I know you've got is it 4 kids that you've got, Samson?
So we have four, and we have a fifth on our way on the way.
Okay,
So
okay. So
6 year old, 4 year old, 2 year old, and 1 year old.
yeah, and I know that you're kind of introducing all of them to table tennis at different stages and different amounts. I wonder if you could tell us how that's going, because I know a lot of table tennis players, they have kids and they're keen for their kids to start playing. They're not sure whether they should kind of wait until they're 6 or 7 or if it's a good idea to start younger. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and your experiences.
Okay, so for my other students that are older, that are 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, it's about 90% serious, 10% fun. But for my kids, it's almost 100% fun. So I'm not really pushing them to play. They're the ones that are asking me to play, and we just go downstairs and we just have fun. I mean, we don't do any like very very structured, serious 20-minute footwork drills or anything like that. It's basically a matter of just going downstairs and having fun with dad, and they absolutely love it. So, I mean, we just keep it kind of short and sweet, and we just have fun with it. I figure if they're in the right environment and they start young enough, they're going to be good. The main thing holding them back from being good is their passion for the sport. If they don't really like it and they're just training because dad's forcing them to play, I don't think that they're going to get the most out of their game.
Yeah, definitely. And I've heard of something, kind of the theory of early engagement, and it's not necessarily about early training, it's just about early exposure to the sport and kind of learning through play. And that sounds like what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's surprising from the 6 year old that now that she's playing in the league on a weekly basis, she's already played one USATT tournament, that now she's asking me for coaching advice. She's asking me to do more structured drills because she wants to go out and beat those other kids. So it's great that it's from her as opposed to me like imposing it on her. I mean, at some point we are going to get into serious training, but just not at age 6. Right now, I just want her to like it.
Awesome. Great. Okay, well, the main thing I wanted to talk to you about is this TT Flex product that I've just seen you've come out with. Tell us, what is TT Flex, Samson?
Okay, so what it is, it's a full body strengthening system. It's a racket, a weighted racket that weighs 600 grams. So it's fairly heavy, and it has 12 attachment points that you attach an elastic band to. So the way I came up with this idea is that I heard that a lot of the top players in the world will actually take an elastic band after training, wrap it around the table, and practice their forehand and backhand swings. So the idea with the band training is that you're going through the full range of motion as if you're swinging your racket, but there's a lot more resistance than if you're swinging your racket. I've also heard that the top players in the world will grab a 2-pound weight and go through a full training session with doing all their strokes, their flip, their smash, their loop with the weight. So I thought, it would be even better if we could perfectly simulate it with an actual racket. So that's why I developed TT Flex. It's the weighted racket that weighs 600 grams with the elastic band to it as well. It comes with the beginner version, which is the lightest band, and you can upgrade with the 4 more difficult bands as you improve.
Nice. Okay, so the bat weighs 600 grams. Just for those that are listening that aren't sure, how much does a normal table tennis bat weigh, roughly?
So the actual bat, just the blade by itself, is typically between 80 to 90 grams. I'm not 100% sure on the weight with the rubber. I think it greatly depends on the thickness of the rubber and the type and stuff, but it roughly weighs about twice as much as a normal racket. So it's not like you're holding a 10-pound brick, but it's also adding some resistance. So you can actually take your full swing just like your racket, but you do feel like you're getting a stronger workout because of the resistance.
Okay, and I've come across a heavy bat before actually. When I was up in Middlesbrough in the north of England, training with Steve Brunskill, he'd got someone to create basically a table tennis bat out of lead for him, which was really heavy, and he was using it to get his players to go through the strokes. What benefit is there then to using this heavy bat, or like you say, some of the top players are using like a small dumbbell? What muscles are being trained? Why are they doing that?
So basically, it's like anything with fitness. I mean, if you just train like everybody else, if you just train normal, you're not really going to push the limits for how fast you can swing, how much spin you can generate. So, for example, if you're doing a weightlifting competition and you're benching 100 kilos and you only bench 100 kilos for the next 20 years, you're probably not going to make much progress. Part of the thing with strengthening the muscles is you've got to be able to challenge yourself in more ways. So how are you going to challenge yourself if you're just taking the swing over and over tens of thousands of times? So the thing is, it challenges your muscles in different ways than it would with your normal racket. And you'd be surprised after swinging TT Flex for a long time how much faster you're swinging your normal racket. It really is significant. You'll notice the difference after 2 or 3 weeks. As far as which muscles go, it depends on which strokes you're doing. Obviously, if you're going to be doing the forehand loop, you're going to really be working the legs. You're going to be working all the core muscles. You're going to even be working like the wrist and forearm. If you're doing something like backhand flip, it's probably going to involve a little bit less on the legs, but it's really going to be able to strengthen the wrist, the forearm, and the rotator cuff.
Awesome. Okay, so you can use this heavy bat to kind of do shadow training, I'm guessing, and then the idea is that when you go back to your normal bat, your bat's going to feel so light that you're going to be able to accelerate faster.
Right, right. So racket acceleration is not like the only key in table tennis. And being able to swing your racket at 100 miles an hour is not going to make you world champion. But it is one of the aspects, especially for developing players. Sometimes they're not able to swing enough to develop speed and spin. That's why players go to the gym. That's why they work out in the fitness room for an hour or two a day, is because they want to strengthen the muscles. And doing bench press and pull-ups and dips and push-ups and everything is great, but you're not exactly working the right range of motion. That's just kind of developing overall fitness. with TT Flex, it actually develops the right fitness, the exact muscles that you need to improve your game.
Awesome. Okay, and then who are you picturing as kind of like the ideal person that would go out and buy a TT Flex? Is this aimed at beginners or kind of really high level players? Where are you pitching the product?
Well, initially here, I have been sending it out to some top players. The idea with getting the top players to endorse it is just for the intermediate players to kind of understand that, hey, look, this really is a valuable tool. And since a lot of the top players in the world are already using the band, I think it'll be a fairly easy transition for them to use the racket. So I think any of the top players in the world would really benefit from it. I think any intermediate and beginner players would also benefit as long as their strokes are established. So if you have somebody walk into the table tennis club for the first time and they don't even know what the forehand should look like, and now they grab that and they're swinging that for 20 minutes a day, you're probably not going to get to the top level in the club. So anybody, beginner or intermediate level, that has a stroke that's established and it's the correct stroke, it's definitely beneficial for. And like I said, I think I'm going to be getting some endorsements here in the coming weeks from a few of the top players in the world that are going to be using it here soon.
That sounds cool. And that's something that's actually come up a lot because I often try and get players to do shadow training or or practice strokes with a robot. But it's really important that if you're going to be doing that, you've got the technique right, because if you're going to be doing loads and loads of repetition on certain strokes, if you're doing that wrong, your brain's just learning the wrong mechanics, isn't it? So it's so important that, like you said earlier, you get that coaching and you understand how to play, and then you can go about kind of doing the repetition and absorbing all of the technique.
Right, right. Yeah, because they say practice makes permanent. So if you are going to permanently ingrain the wrong stroke, it's going to make it 10 times harder for you to relearn it. That's the value of getting a coach early. And I hear it a lot. I hear parents say, I'm going to let my kid play at the table tennis club for the next 2 or 3 years, and then down the road, I might bring him to you. And I say, you know what? That's already too late. At that point, the bad habits are so ingrained that it's very difficult to relearn it. So you can relearn it, but it's definitely easier to get off on the right foot from the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, it'll be cool to see what the professional players say about it. I know that you've been using this yourself for a while, so I wonder if you could maybe share some of your favorite things to do with the TT Flex. Kind of, what are some of the kind of best strokes that work with the product?
So typically any type of power stroke, forehand loop against topspin, forehand loop against backspin, backhand loop against topspin, backhand loop against backspin. I mean, all those, any kind of power stroke that you really need to work on your acceleration. Even like flipping. The difficult thing with a flip is that you need to be able to accelerate fast within a short period of time. That's why flipping, for example, is harder to generate as much energy as a loop because the table's in the way, so you need a rapid acceleration and then a rapid deceleration. So if you're able to develop a faster wrist snap, you're going to get a lot more spin on your backhand flip. And then if you're going to develop a fast forearm snap on your forehand, you're going to be able to develop a much better forehand flip. So any stroke that you need to develop more speed is definitely a big benefit. I don't use it that much. I only use it for 5 minutes a day when I'm done with training. So it's not like I'm in my basement just swinging away for hours and hours. I mean, just a very simple 5 to 10 minute workout, let's say about 1 minute for each stroke, is very, very, very efficient.
Okay, so you're using this kind of as a bolt on at the end of your normal training.
Yeah, yeah. So my body's completely tired. I'm exhausted, and I feel like I have nothing left. I grab the racket and I do 1 minute with each of the strokes, and then I feel like I really, really, really was able to top off my workout with a strong ending.
And are there certain muscles in your body where you're then feeling it the next day that you're kind of feeling a bit more of an ache and therefore the muscle is kind of rebuilding and becoming stronger?
So, as you know from working out, usually it's the new workout, the one that you did for the first time, that you really feel that ache. Because I've been using it for like the last 2 years, I don't really feel that ache anymore. But if there was somebody to try it for the first time, all their table tennis muscles, especially the core muscles from the rotation, like on the forehand loop, and then also the wrist muscles, are definitely going to feel fatigued the next day.
Okay, so you're talking about on the big strokes, the big loop strokes, because you're used to using your body for the twist, but now you've got that resistance to it. That's gonna kind of just work out your core a lot more.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people will go to the gym and they'll do, 1,000 crunches or 1,000 sit-ups for the day. But in table tennis, we really don't use that movement. What we really use is more like the side muscles, like the obliques, from the rotation. So what you need to develop on your forehand loop, if you want to get more speed and spin, are strong obliques that can rotate your body. So if you can develop all those core muscles, it's good. And this is a much more efficient way to develop the core than going to the gym and doing 1,000 crunches.
Yeah, because this is really specific to the table tennis technique, isn't it? And I guess there isn't really anything else that's that specific. This is because you've got the bat in your hand and you're actually playing all of the strokes. It's like an exact replica of what you'll be doing on the table.
Exactly. And I think the efficiency of doing specifics is going to be really, really important. For the average person that doesn't have 8 hours a day to train, they have to think, how can I get the most out of this practice session? Okay, so I have 10 minutes to do serve. How can I get the most out of my serve? So I was just thinking, as far as fitness, the average person that goes to school or has a job doesn't necessarily have time to go to the gym and work out 2 hours every night. So how can we improve table tennis fitness in a very short period of time? And this was the most efficient workout that I could come out with.
Yeah. And I guess would you advise this to junior players, to younger players, or is this more for adults because of the strength aspect to it?
Yeah, so the one of the original prototypes that I came out with about a year and a half ago, it was twice as heavy as this one. So this one's 600 grams, the other one was 1,200 grams. So for somebody that is fairly strong, like an adult male, that's about my size, that's okay. But I really wanted to come out with kind of a mid-range one that kids could do. So I didn't come out with an extra large handle. I've been actually trying it out with some of my juniors for quite some time, and it's actually quite good. It's a mid-size handle, so adults and juniors can both use it. And what I'm having my juniors do is I'm having them start out with just the band or just the racket. It is quite a bit of resistance. Everybody grabs it and they think, oh, this will be easy because they've seen me do it on YouTube or Facebook or whatever. But it's actually not that easy. As in any stroke or any skill that you learn, it does take time and it's quite strenuous on the muscles. So to develop the technique, I just have my juniors do just the racket or just the band, or sometimes both, just the racket and then just the band. And then over time, I'm going to work them into being able to do it together, racket and band.
Right. Awesome. And as I say, you've been using this for a while now. It sounds like this has been kind of a long time in the making, and that's gone alongside all of the increased training and stuff you've been doing. Have you seen the impact of that on your game, on your own strength and table tennis fitness?
So it's hard to say for sure. I definitely feel that I've had more racket speed since I've used it. I feel like I'm able to use my core muscles better on my forehand. So I feel that my basic technique has improved a lot. If you watch a YouTube video of me playing now versus playing 7 or 8 years ago, you can definitely see a huge difference in my technique. So I think that it has changed. Um, the problem for my game personally is that I don't get high level training on a regular basis. So, for example, last week I played at the US Open and I played one guy and I was winning basically all the rallies, but I was missing up to 7 serves a game. So, if I'm playing high level players and I can't return the serve, no matter how strong I am, no matter how good my technique is, I'm just not going to win. So I think that you have to keep TT Flex in perspective. So I don't want you to lock yourself in the closet and practice this thing for the next 6 months and come out thinking you're amazing. This is great as far as the fitness aspect, but there's many other aspects of table tennis that need to be developed as well, such as anticipation, watching the racket, learning to read the spin, learning to have a good short game, learning to have good serve return. So I think that overall, I think a player needs many, many, many things. This is just one of the many aspects that they need.
Of course. Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the serve and return stuff because that's something that a lot of players always talk about the Chinese being so good at the serve and return, and if they can get past that, then they're able to compete in the rallies. But it's just the quality of the serve and return that they have that really sets them apart. And if you think about the way that they train, where they're just surrounded by so many high level players all kind of like experimenting and doing different things, I guess that kind of makes sense. And the contrast would be someone like yourself who's a very high level player but is more isolated and struggles to get access to that, and maybe that's the area that you struggle in.
Yeah, being isolated definitely has the problems as far as that goes. I think if I'm going to overcome that, I definitely need to develop better technique on my short game, and I also need to be able to play more tournaments on a regular basis. I don't have the luxury of having 10, 2600 level practice partners at my house here, but every time I get to a tournament, I am able to play against different people and I'm able to get more experience that way. So in 2017, I am planning to continue playing tournaments because I think this is one of the best ways to develop my serve return. Can I comment real quick on serve return as it relates to others?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Okay, so one question that keeps coming up over and over again is how can I improve my serve return? I think a lot of players think that it's only about reading the spin, and for a lot of the basic beginner players that I have, I actually won't teach them serve return early on because I say the better their technique is and the better their basic strokes are, the easier it is to return serve. So serve return is more about having real strokes than it is just about reading the spin. I mean, I'll look at the guy and I'll say, I don't care if you read the spin perfectly, with that stroke, you're never going to have a good serve return. So I think early on, developing a good push, developing a good loop, developing a good flip, I think those should definitely take the priority. And then I think it's only a matter of time and practice, obviously, before they develop the ability to read the spin. So if you take Junjiko, for example, like his backhand flip, with that technique where he's able to get in good position, he's able to play the right timing, he's able to play the right spin, even if he's not the best at reading the spin, because his backhand flip is so dominant, he's able to oftentimes overcome the opponent's spin. So reading the spin is super important, but also developing the right technique so that when you read it, you can put quality on your return. I think this is equally or even more important.
Yeah, and that was a really big lesson from the expert in a year thing I did back in 2014, because I know Sam had this thing in his mind. He's quite analytical, and he was always really trying to think, right, if they do this serve, then I have to return it in this way, and he really got bogged down in kind of the spin, and if they do this, I have to do that, and that really kind of ruined his serve return. And then we came across this idea of just, if he played a really good flick or a really good loop, it then he could kind of overcome the other stuff. And he ended up coming up with this phrase that he'd say to himself, which was bully the ball, which was the idea that if he plays like a good enough shot, then he can kind of tell the ball what to do, as opposed to being a slave to, oh, what spin is it, and then I have to do this in order to get it back. And that just gave him a big boost in confidence, just being able to think that, no, actually, if I focus on playing a really good backhand flick, then it doesn't matter if it's really heavy backspin or backspin and side spin or whatever, because the flick can kind of overcome it if you get the technique right.
Yeah, what you just said right there, I think is a big key. And I think about 90% of the players in the US don't understand that concept. So yes, it's really, really, really important to be able to read the spin. It's really important to make the right decision. But as you're pushing or as you're looping, the hesitation of going, maybe I shouldn't be looping, and then kind of giving a halfway loop, that's definitely going to hurt you. I think being able to hit through it with confidence and using good technique as opposed to just blocking or just touching the ball, I think that's a huge key, especially for the beginner to intermediate type player. I see that they're making a lot of mistakes that way.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, awesome. Samson, where can people go to buy one of these TT Flex? And yeah, and I know you've got this kind of free delivery thing going on, so you should definitely tell them about that as well.
Yeah, so as a promotion for TT Flex, I'd like it to be for people not just in the US, but around the world. So on my website, it's samsondubina.com, SAMSONDUB as in boy, INA, samsondubina.com. We're offering free domestic and international shipping. just because I want players from around the world, whether it be UK or Germany or Sweden or China. I want people around the world to be able to try it out because I believe in the product and I really know that it's going to be a successful product. I want people from around the world to be able to try it out. So we're offering free shipping. So they just arrived this week. So if they order them, I'll be sending them out this week. So yeah, I'd encourage people to go on and check it out. I think that you could probably also check out my YouTube videos. I have some YouTube videos on my website, so you can even check it out and watch it before you buy it.
And how much does it cost?
So it costs $89.99. That's for the racket, the band, and the instructions. If they want to purchase the upgrade kit down the road, that's $39.99, and that includes 4 other elastic bands that are much more difficult. So the band that you get is beginner to intermediate level. The upgrade kit that they can purchase down the road, that's more of the advanced level. Those bands are much stronger.
Cool. So you can kind of progress through the bands.
Yeah, that's the idea. The idea is that, hey, you've been swinging your racket now for years. You need to progress. TT Flex is a great upgrade, but if you use it for a few months, maybe you're going to need an upgrade on top of that so you can get the more difficult bands.
Sounds good. And I'm going to be doing a review in the new year on the product. Really can't wait to try it. And yeah, I'll try and get a video review up and share my thoughts on it. Samson, it's been awesome having you on. Yeah, samsondubina.com is the place to go to buy TT Flex. And what I'll do is I'll make sure there's links in the show notes to all of that. You're on Facebook as well. You're quite active on Facebook, aren't you, Samson?
Yeah. So if you have any questions, you can always ask me on Facebook. In the coming weeks and months, I'll be posting some other videos about TT Flex, so be sure to check those out as well.
And if you happen to be in Ohio, Samson is the man to see about table tennis.
Yeah, and even if they're outside of Ohio, we even do Skype lessons as well. So even if they're in England, they can still take a Skype lesson. So that way they can take a lesson even from the convenience of their home.
Yeah, of course. I forgot about that. Okay, that's awesome. Thanks, Samson. It's been great talking to you.
All right, thanks, Ben. Take
Cheers.
care.
I'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to episode 39 of the Expert Table Tennis Podcast, and a big thank you to our guest, Samson Dubina. I just really love talking to Samson, and it's really clear that he really loves table tennis and that he really enjoys and wants to help players improve their game. And I think that really comes through every time I talk to him, and just from reading his blog and watching him on Facebook and the other things that he does, he's just so passionate about the sport, and that's really encouraging. So thanks, Samson, for everything that you do for table tennis. I can't wait to try out this TT Flex product, and I'll be doing a review and popping that on YouTube in the new year. You should definitely go and order one of those if that's something that you would be interested in and you think that might add a new level to your game, a bit more explosive acceleration and power and table tennis specific fitness training. Yeah, it's a fantastic idea. So definitely go and order one of those. Before we go, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, tabletennisuniversity.com. They are the home of online table tennis training, and there's loads of coaches on there giving courses and instruction looking at different areas of the game. Samson Dubina has actually got a course on there as well, so you can actually go to tabletennisuniversity.com and you can enroll on his International Table Tennis Skills course. I think it's $47, and that's kind of 2.5 hours worth of training covering all of the aspects of the game of table tennis. It's really, really comprehensive, and it's broken down into kind of 2-minute bits so that you can kind of just look at, okay, how I want to work on my forehand loop against backspin, and there'll be a 2-minute video on there that kind of goes through some of the techniques and has a video demonstration. Really nicely made and well done. So yeah, if you're interested in having learning a bit more from Samson about the technical aspects of the game, and this is something that I guess could go along with the TT Flex because you need to get your technique right before you start drilling it in, then yeah, go to tabletennisuniversity.com, click on courses, and you'll find Samson's International Table Tennis Skills course on there for something like $47. I'll be back next month with a brand new episode on the 1st of February, guest to be confirmed. You can also, in the meantime, check out, as I said at the start of this show, my new podcast, Ask a Table Tennis Coach. That's coming out 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, just very short 5-minute-ish episodes covering a question that's been sent in by an expert table tennis reader, listener, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's a really great chance for me to answer questions and just hopefully give you a little bit more in-depth answers instead of just sending back a kind of 2-line email. Thanks for listening. I will see you in a month's time. And don't forget to subscribe to this episode on iTunes and please share it with your friends.